in week 3, you talk about tools for conviviality. I think this is also a somewhat well-known phrase, at least for people who have, heard of Ivan Illich. How about you give us the high-level overview of kind of what's most interesting or relevant to you here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of already mentioned Illich's sort of concern about tools and concern about technology overall. And in many ways, he's a kind of theorist or a sociologist or a thinker of tools and our particular relation to them, and the kind of increasing way in which they come to dominate us. And one of the things that Illich does really well is to try to very beautifully resurrect particular concepts or particular terms. And so one of his words in this sense is this word eutrapelia, which is eutrapelia, which he translates as graceful playfulness, which he thinks we need to bring back into our personal relationships. And it's quite an ancient term in a way. So to be convivial obviously is to live with, but not just to live, but to sort of thrive in this kind of graceful playfulness. And the idea that social interaction, doesn't have to be simply, the mediated relation of people as things in terms of exchange and use, but rather a kind of beautiful game, if you like. And similarly, exactly. And so he kind of uses conviviality against the expansion of technology. Basically, he wants to limit tools so that they serve this term of eutrapelia. And also austerity, which he tries to resurrect this word austerity, which is even more interesting to do so now, because obviously austerity became then a sort of economic term that was used to basically punish countries like Britain after the economic crash. And, it doesn't have very nice associations. But actually for Illich, he takes it from Aquinas and he talks about it as being the foundation of friendship, in fact. And so austerity then is basically like, this kind of I'll just read this. Austerity is a virtue which does not exclude all enjoyments, but only those which are distracting from or destructive of personal relatedness. So it's basically allowing the space for particular kinds of beautiful or graceful relationality by limiting distraction. So there's a lot of this kind of language and terminology.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of the stuff I've been reading most lately, and a lot of the stuff I talk about lately, is definitely very much in the more accelerationist side of things. And so it's very interesting in a way to be introducing Illich, especially to the course catalog, because it's very not that, right? It's very he does seem pretty bullish on the possibility of humans kind of reorganizing things in such a way as to kind of stop the mega machine. Is that a fair interpretation? Or
I think so. And I think even if there's something perhaps doomed about this project, I think it's absolutely, I don't think there's something doomed, but I'm increasingly interested in like questions of degrowth and deceleration. And I've always been critical of left accelerationism, and accelerationism in general, for that matter, in terms of the kind of acceptance of a certain kind of technological determinism or a kind of Promethean dimension to human expression. So I kind of want to use Illich to provide a kind of counterpoint, but I framed this week in particular around these discussions about accelerationism, I believe. So there's a sense in which we're going to use Illich to directly look at these contemporary framings of technology.
Excellent. So I think it would be good to kind of double click on this for a moment, because I'm curious how you see this, how you think this shakes out. Like, did Illich believe that his ideas were practical, or was it more of a kind of tragic philosophical mode where it's like, I'm going to say what we should be doing, I'm going to say what life should be, even if there's a kind of inner self-consciousness that it's probably doomed? Like, where did he fall on the spectrum of like actual practical, implementation optimism versus the more kind of like tragic mode where thinkers like this sometimes dwell.
Yeah, I think again, David Cayley is very, very good on this, and I think it's a kind of curious, paradoxical mixture of the two. I suppose there's some essays and so on where he seems kind of very optimistic, and that we can reorganize things socially and otherwise. And of course he's always proposing positive alternatives like the learning networks as opposed to the school, and there are a lot of the things that Illich is kind of trying to do is in a way to follow Christ. That Illich is actually really trying to emulate a love of Christ and to become more like Christ, and this is the way that Illich does it. So even though there's a kind of apocalypticism in Illich, Illich notes that this is the apocalypticism of industrial modern society itself that has kind of tried to, in a way, that has immanentized these Christian concepts.
Wow.
But yeah.
So are you becoming a tradcath, Nina?
No, more like a sort of, I don't know, like a centrist Anglican, I think.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I can't be
Because
properly trad.
Yeah. Are you sincerely becoming Anglican, or are you just kind of joking?
No, I
because you haven't always been, right?
No, I mean I'm the just another bastard product of this degenerate liberal hedonistic age. But but no, I think
yeah.
I've been reading a lot of Alistair McIntyre, and yeah. I mean, thinking about the very complex, and Illich, obviously, and thinking about the very complex relationship, I suppose, between, modernity, pre-modernity, the end of liberalism, if that's indeed how we choose to see things, and what we might want to preserve and what we might not want to preserve, and how to rethink questions of tradition itself, but also, questions of community and belonging and these kinds of things, which are obviously eroded by liberal capitalism. So, and God might might be part of that. No, undoubtedly.
You're transitioning from your neo-paganism to proper Catholic traditionalism. This is very good. I approve of this.
I'm basically just recapitulating the end of the Roman Empire.
Aren't we all? Okay, great. So week 4 is all about energy and equity.
Yes.